Now, pipelines can be used to do a whole lot of ETL, extract, transform, load, kind of a way to build data pipelines in a low code or no code fashion. So that's out there, that's available. What I use pipelines for is to schedule my Spark notebooks and maybe to run some database scripts, some data loads, either using copy data or there's also this metadata driven copy, which is really powerful, but a bit much deeper topic. And you can also then, if you're going to use dedicated SQL, you could kick off stored procedures that do some of the processing there and get that data ready for delivery to reports and analytic systems. Now, within pipelines, really pretty straightforward. I've got another video about how to schedule these and the triggers, but you can add these Synapse activities such as the notebook. You can add a job definition where you've loaded up some Spark code just as a file, and you call that file without having it in a notebook format. And so that might be easier to source control depending on how you structure your team and your work. And then, like I said, SQL pool stored procedures are available. A little, I don't know, trick that's starting to go away. I think it's still in preview to do a SQL task instead of this, but a little trick I've been using when I do need to run serverless SQL code to write back to the data lake is I can set up a source that is really an Azure SQL source, but give it my on-demand database credentials, my host name, I should say. And when I set that up, let's do a quick glimpse here. When I set that up, I am basically just using my Synapse on-demand host. Okay, and that's going to run on serverless SQL just like the notebooks I showed a moment ago. I can use managed identity as long as I configure it on the storage that I'm going to access, and I'm good to go there. So with that, I could do something that's really just one of the serverless SQL queries that was in the script, grab that, and tell it to write those results to Parquet in my data lake. So by combining these, you can probably tell you could run multiple activities in parallel, have some dependencies that then run the final steps after all of the parallel processing has happened across different notebooks. Just keep an eye on your Spark pools and how much you're using at once because it is pretty easy to overload your Spark pool and start to have sessions that don't actually kick off, have failures, things like that. And so by either creating more pools or just managing your sessions closely, yeah, you should be able to get around that and work pretty well by running your Spark notebooks from pipelines on a scheduled basis. It's fairly easy to create triggers, edit triggers. You can always just trigger now. I just talked about that in a recent video, so I won't go any deeper on that for the moment. So here I can see my pipelines. I have one that's still running and some that have failed. So let's see what we can get out of here. To find errors like this, it's very easy. Just click on this box and view the error message. I didn't say it's easy to read the error. I just said it's easy to find it. And so here we have a Java error that is related to Spark trying to get credentials from Key Vault, and that probably means I need to set some permissions a little bit differently. How do I know that? Well, I've been doing this a little bit and I got used to reading Java stack traces combined with exception messages. So that would be a type of thing I could dig into, and the error message does make that visible to me, even though it's not the easiest thing to digest if you're new to it. If I have a pipeline running, though, I can click on it and start to see more about what's going on. I can see kind of the graphical interface, which is nice. I can see that this worked, so I probably wouldn't dig any deeper on that one. And I can see that there's one running, and this one's, it's only 14 seconds in. It's actually probably going to complete pretty soon, but now I can keep an eye on it. I can refresh every so often to see if it's completing. Not quite yet. I can take a look at some more information about what's going on within this task in case I don't know or if it's parameterized and I want to see what the actual query is under the covers. And what else can I do? I can potentially view a little bit more about how much data I'm moving. We're kind of early on in the processing, so it doesn't show a lot quite yet. I can show that right at the end just to see. So as that's running, if I want to see more about what happened with Spark, one of the easy things to do is click on the little eyeglasses, I guess, the preview mode. I'm going to clear screen space and then have to bring it back in a moment, but that's just how it goes. I have my parameters set. I have my Spark code. Nothing too important here, but I can go through and see that, oh, here's a check mark saying it worked. I can see how long each step took and when it last ran. And then if I have errors, I could actually see, sometimes I can see some of the error information here. It just depends on how your Spark jobs and your logging is set up. Going back to my pipeline activities, I'll keep an eye on this and we'll just take a last look at the pipeline once it's complete. As that keeps running, we can take a look at a little more about what else we can monitor. So we can monitor the trigger runs, and there we go. We can see that the trigger kicked off and It succeeded in kicking off is basically what that means. It kicked some pipelines off and I can click around to try and see more info. Not the most useful tab for me usually. Usually I want to see what's actually processed. But if I have a lot of triggers, then this is going to be really nice to see hopefully better named triggers tell you what's going on. If I need to monitor integration runtimes, I can always check those out. Not as common for me. Apache Spark applications, I spend an okay amount of time in this, a little more than I want to usually. And they're a little more effective when it's running. But if I pull open a Spark application that's completed, so within your Spark application, you have some stages and things you can filter to get more of a graphical view of what all's happened. A lot of times, if I'm here, it's because I need to dig into the logs via what log4j is doing here, as it writes a bunch of information in standard error. Or if I have error messages, those usually end up in my standard out, and so I'd see kind of this last piece would be a big error message that tells me a little something once I focus in and dig deep. KQL requests, SQL requests, these different things are available. I don't have a lot going on, but you can see some things that I've done in the past there. And if I want to make sure I know which pools are running, I have a lot created because of the different tests I do, but I can see the allocated vCores and allocated memory. And basically the main thing is I look at this to see, has it scaled up on me? That's one way to find out if it's scaled up. And is something running right now? If I think I'm done for the day and there's still something running, I'll check here, see it's running. I'll go kill any Spark applications that are going, which you can pretty easily cancel them from this view down here. And then from SQL pools, this will just let me see, oh, I am running my dedicated SQL pool. I better not forget to turn that off when I'm done, but I still have one more thing to show you. So we'll keep it running for now. Back to our pipeline run. It did complete after all. It took about 4 minutes there. And if I click the view button, now I can see how much data I moved around. So probably not the most efficient way to move data from one place in the serverless SQL query into another spot of data lake storage, but it is a way to do it that I wanted to show that makes it easy to schedule. And if you're really comfortable with Synapse pipelines or in the past Azure Data Factory, this might be a way for you to manipulate data, transform data without going the Spark route if you're not comfortable with that yet. If you want to hear more about data engineering using Azure Synapse and some of the other Azure tools that data engineers use, subscribe to this channel so you know what's coming up. Thanks. See you next time.